Hello there. You're listening to 10 Questions, where we discuss the wet plate collodion process and the photographers that create these unique images known as ambrotypes and tintypes. I'm your host, Chad Shryock, wet plate photographer for Pork Pie Photography based in Fort Collins, Colorado. In each episode, I've asked a modern-day practitioner to sit down with me and talk about how they got involved with this vintage process, share some information on their gear and studio, and provide some valuable insights into their creative process. So whether you're just beginning to dabble your toes in the collodion ethers, or you're a seasoned silver bath expert, hang on and see what develops with 10 Questions. In this episode, we're hitting the road in a Ford shuttle bus with a tintypist that harkens back to the days of the itinerant photographer from decades long ago. I know him as that guy that takes amazing portraits no matter where he sets up camp, and I'm looking forward to hearing some great stories, not only about wet plate, but also about the people he encounters in his travels. Based in Blandburg, Pennsylvania, but likely traveling in a shuttle bus near you, I'd like to welcome Joseph Wyman Brown to 10 Questions.
Yeah.
All
Hi,
right.
Chad. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Joseph, how's it going, man?
Oh man, it goes so well.
So
So
you're
well.
you're planted somewhere today, huh?
Yes, I am grounded right now in my family's house. Just kind of having a reset pretty much before I get back on the road again for their 2023.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we were able to find a slot in your schedule to talk some wet plate today.
Yeah.
So I've been watching your Instagram feed for quite a while, and I know you've done a great job of giving people a glimpse into what life on the road looks like. Really enjoy your little 1 second clips that you post out there every so often.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely with meeting so many people, and I've definitely gained a lot of friends. That was definitely one of those little side projects. That was just another way of saying thank you for your time and spending your time with me. So that's why I started that. That and also I couldn't tell you how many million things happens a day that when someone brings something up, I can just go back to those videos and kind of go, oh yeah, I remember that.
Sweet. So I also discovered, while kind of poking around on your website and doing some, just trying to collect some background information, that you were in the U.S. military for a number of years.
Yes,
And
I was in the army for 11 years.
awesome.
So,
So I guess I'm just going to start off and say thanks for your service, man. I appreciate that. I know that can be a sacrifice on you and your family, and thank you.
I appreciate hearing that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Joseph, let's talk a little bit about wet plate. So what motivated you to get into wet plate photography? Not only, taking tintypes, but also a traveling one to boot.
Gosh, friend, you have no idea how much like of a story that is. I was like, how much time do we have? Um, well, it's great that you bring up the army part first because I joined the Army National Guard while I was in 11th grade, and I can tell you right now, I never thought in a million years I would be a tintype photographer. That wasn't part of the plan, let alone photography.
Okay.
So when I went to Iraq, I had been dabbling with photography, but nothing more than just kind of a hobbyist. And it just took, enough sergeants and higher ups to kind of like occasionally, keep up. And like, Brown, you're pretty good at these. You're a camera guy. So I picked up photography really in Iraq. And then when I got home, I did not know what to do with my life. And I didn't know photography was a viable like career option for me. And I can tell you right now, again, like most of us in 2009, 2010, I think most folks that are within the process now found it right about late 2010 and the 2012.
Okay.
So I just got into school for photography by luck. I was supposed to go to school for media arts and animation, but I ran into the department chair of photography. We got to talking about my photography from over Iraq. I did a scholarship. I was very fortunate. I won the scholarship, and I got, I think it was like, don't quote me. It was a big number, but I think it was $31,000 in scholarships.
Very nice.
and I also had the Army paying for it too. So, what got me into photography? I'd say this is a moment for pause because there is so much to get into it. So I think I'll start over the question because I feel like there's so much to explain. But I think I'll just go, hey, I was in college and I found this person.
Okay. No, that's great.
Yeah, because I there's so much story that I will definitely do my best to summarize in this podcast.
Sure. So what was your, first exposure to wet plates specifically?
Oh wow, yeah, I think it was 2013. It was February 2013. I was going to college at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I was about 2.5 years into my schooling. And one of my colleagues had like shared like a Facebook profile picture of a tintype portrait he had gotten. And to be honest with you, I really thought it was fake. I just thought it was another filter of the time, and it was. I was kind of like I was interested. That's what kind of piqued my interest. And then here to find out, there was a gentleman named Jason Snyder, who had a studio in Polish Hill, and that's not even 1.3 miles away from my house at the time in Pittsburgh. So I was very fortunate at the time. Once you go online, you see the social media, like, oh my God, this guy exists. He's got a studio and he's doing this thing that I read about in history class for photography, but you can do it still.
Nice.
So I was very fortunate at the time. I was the president of the photo club, so I took that as an opportunity to reach out to Jason, like, hey, I'm so and so with the Art Institute of Circular Photo Club was the name of it. And, like, I'd like to bring the club out for a workshop or just a demo of tintype photography. Uh, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't for me.
How many people did you get to come with you, though?
If I were to look back on the group picture, if I remember it correctly, it was probably about 12 of us
Oh, that's
that went
great.
out. And what we ended up doing was when I asked them about coming out, I was like, well, what is it for like to have one person and to walk away with a portrait? And he was just, it was $80, I think at the time. And well, that was pretty simple. Our, the club wasn't raising that kind of money, like hundreds of dollars, but it had $80 to spend for it. And when we got there, we had our introductions, and we ended up drawing from a hat who was going to get the tintype, and it wasn't me. I was leadership, so I took myself out of that poll. So
Okay. Yep.
I you know being from the Army days, that was the leadership goes to the back of the line, for chow and whatnot. The Joes go up front.
Yep.
So I remember walking into, it was an old clinic building that turned into little studios and whatnot, and that was the first time I met Jason. And I think during the process, I was trying not to overshadow, but like I was definitely kind of like every moment, every movement he made, I was kind of like, whoa, what? Okay, what do you do in the darkroom? How do I? And then I was worried about, how do I, how do I say, hey, Jason, um, uh, how can I be here every other day? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
That was
Are you looking for
that
an
was 10 years
apprentice?
ago. Yeah, exactly. But I also wanted to come off like two. I was trying to also kill two birds with one stone. I was trying to think of a class that I can get credit for, all the while also being apprenticed for him. And I think I don't remember how I asked, but it just came down to me asking, "Hey, can I? Is there any way I can be here any other day? Do you need help?" And Jason is such a wonderful character, and gentleman and artist and friend. Uh, he was just like, "Yeah, sure." And yeah. It was February 2013 was my like I saw it happen in front of me, and I was like all of us, just like, holy shit, that's it.
Yeah.
There it is.
I tell you what, I really appreciate hearing about folks like Jason that kind of open up their doors to their studio to folks to come in and see this process firsthand. Because it really is, it's proof positive that it sparked something in you and you've been able to take it on the road. So That's
Oh my
fantastic that
gosh,
that
yeah.
people do that. I mean, I know there's been a lot of people that have kind of helped me out along the way. Especially through a lot of the Facebook forums and stuff like that I've reached out to, and I think for the most part, people are pretty willing to tell you what they know and try to help you out. So I appreciate
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
Oh, I can speak for days about Jason. Jason really was. I mean, I also felt the same way as like I think most anybody gets into this process, especially if you're in the same town or city. Maybe you are very into it. You're very excited about it. You're motivated by the process, but you also don't want to step on toes, or you don't want to come off like you are stepping on toes.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was honestly a big worry of mine, and I want to I make sure it was, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about another day, June 29th of 2013. I think I have it recorded that
Haha.
is whenever you took your very first wet plate. Let's talk about that. What was it? How did it go?
Wait, you did your homework. That's great. Yeah. Yes, June 29th was my first time by myself doing the process, and I asked friends at school, and I got Beth Phillips. So we had three of us that came out, and I was what I needed was models,
Okay.
but I also wanted to share the process with my fellow classmates. So that day, and then at that time, I got a kit from Bostic and Sullivan. I was going off muscle memory, watching Jason do all that stuff all the time.
Now wait a minute. Let's
And
just pause here for just a second. So you've collected some models to come in and do this to show them how to do it, and this is your going to be your first time at doing the process. That I mean that's some confidence there. I was not that confident whenever I took my first photo. I had no idea if it was going to turn out or not.
well, I think I can't remember. I know for a fact that I poured a plate with Jason in his studio of a friend, but I can't remember that day because I think it was just kind of like I said, I never wanted to bother him. I just wanted to watch and learn and help him out. So I can't remember the day I like poured my very first plate ever. I remember the first day I ever did it just by myself without his guidance, without him being right there. And it was also with two other people that had no idea what the process was. So I was
Yeah.
the only one that day, and we were shooting out of I had a cardboard box that we'd crawl into on the floor and put a blanket over it, and I had Glad Tupperware for the silver nitrate tank because I didn't have money to buy the any fancy
Right.
boxes or
Yep.
tanks.
Yep.
And I think we just got set up. We were borrowing 4x5 cameras from the school, and the smallest aperture was f9, and they were Toyo cameras.
Okay.
I had a very Yes, we borrowed those cameras, and just as we were about to take the picture, just downpours.
Okay.
Yeah. So as it kind of led up, I took my first shot of Beth. It was an f9 at 8 seconds in the drizzle. When I poured it, uh, if you see the picture, I think the pour itself is not good, and then you can also see in the first plate where like my developer was like it was awful because it kind of like just kind of going around these craters and whatnot. But it's still if the picture came up and that of like all of us, that was another one of those dopamine hits. That just like
Yep.
yes, there it is, there it is.
Yep. That's awesome. So that got you hooked. So what was next for you after that?
So what was next was I think there was a I think the only reason I kept up with the wet plate during that time of my life, it was so sporadic. I wasn't consistently making plates at all. But I kept up with it because it made my portfolio different than the rest of my colleagues for college. And I was just, I think at the time, I've always hated, taking, you take 50 pictures of one set, and then even if you take it to an editor, they're going to get it down to maybe three. And then at the end of the day, they're still going to pick that one picture that, I mean, maybe I wasn't really for, but like that's the picture out of 100. Come on. So I think I kept up with it because of that, but mainly at the time, I created images with the wet plate process for my portfolio for school.
Nice. Was there anybody else that was doing that with you at the time, or was it just you?
It was just me. I had a, yeah, I was actually also pretty sad about that. I had friends that were eager to help or just kind of be present or get their tintype themselves, but no one actually. I didn't have any back and forth other than with Jason at the time.
Nice. Well, you were the trailblazer for the group there.
Yeah.
So, would you say that portraiture is your primary area of focus then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a sucker for eye contact, and there are so many. I mean, when you think about facial structures, there are so many landscapes when it comes to people's faces, and then if you just mix in a little bit of lighting ratios, you can never get bored.
So, do you have a kind of a go-to pose for someone that's sitting in your chair, or you kind of just go with however they plant themselves?
Ooh, well, the tricky part is there's too many variables with that. Yes, there can be just the basic straight on, but then you got to think about like Rembrandt lighting or broad lighting. That's usually where if someone wants to be straightforward, then I'll kick in the whole lighting aspect of the shot itself. But if I were to shoot these portraits one way for the rest of my life, it would probably be straightforward with a good old fashioned Rembrandt with a kicker in the back of the head.
Okay, nice. I did do some looking around in your portfolio online, and I noticed that you've got quite a few shots of folks and their pets, mostly dogs, right? I did not
Yeah.
see any cats, though. So, are you willing to go on the record to say that cats are just not deserving of this process?
Uh oh. Well, that's you gotta put me on the spot like that. That was
Yeah, that's kind of
good.
a trick question. That's all right. You don't have to
I'm a
answer
dog
it.
person. Yeah.
Cats
Well,
really,
here
they probably don't
I
care about it
photographed
anyways,
three.
right?
Yes. No. The cats they do what they want. They're their own, like truly their own. I want to say like different breed, but really truly it is. Cats just don't care. I think I photographed three cats so far in the past 3 years on the road. One of them was very feisty. The second one, they sedated the cat before they brought it in, which I felt really uneasy about. And the third cat was just exceptionally chill.
Nice.
It truly just kind of like kept looking at me like, hey man, whenever you're ready, let's do this.
Would you kind of group cats and toddlers and maybe the same kind of group there? Kind of hard for them
Ooh,
to hold still and
I'd rather not ever
yeah.
photograph a cat. Because at least with kids, you can make a very loud noise or rattle some keys that you'll have their attention for just long enough for that pop of the flash.
Yep. And maybe you get lucky. That's good.
Yeah, and you hope to God they don't blink.
So you've got a pretty unique way of getting around, right? So tell us, what is your quote studio and dark room slash dark box look like? Kind of give us an idea for what your kind of typical studio arrangement is.
So I definitely require a venue or space, or brewers are the best. Brewers have the space available to me. Most of the pop ups I do, a majority of them, I'll have my 6 foot backdrop, and I'll have about I bring in about four lights, with the fourth light being like a backup as like a fill, especially when there's a group of three or something like that. So I'll have two lights in the back, which are my Paul C. Buff Einstein and an Alien B. And then up front, I got a White Lightning with a beauty dish.
Okay.
And the backlights both have cones on them. I'm now in my fourth darkroom build. It's more like a suitcase. It just folds down. I think it's about, I'd say about 3 by 2 foot
Okay.
suitcase,
Nice.
and that just folds right open. It has most of the advertising and portfolio on the front of the darkroom. I've got this huge red window that people can actually participate and watch the development part of it.
Nice. I find that people kind of enjoy taking a peek inside of those boxes when they can.
Oh, it definitely helps out. It helps people understand that there's. I mean, yes, it's magical, sure, but they can actually see you create the image that much more. and then there's more value put onto that via the artistry to it, and the, what goes into actually creating these tin types.
Yeah. I've got an old Army footlocker that I use as my portable darkroom whenever I'm out shooting somewhere, but it's a little bit heavy. You know, I've got a couple of plastic conduit poles that I drop into it that kind of insert into a bracket at an angle, and then I've got a curtain that I just drape over the whole thing so I can essentially stand inside of it and do whatever I need to do. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, now when you say old Army footlockers,
This
uh,
is like World War II, probably, you know, old green, probably
oh
weighs
yeah,
20 pounds just by itself, empty.
yeah, those are heavy. Because what I had was, I think about what I had in the Army, and that was just like a good old footlocker that was made out of plastic, so it was exceptionally lighter than what you have.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you find that, are you looking forward to, is there anyone out there? I know I think there's Wet Plate Wagon that has created mobile darkrooms, and I think Lund Photographics also has like a Pelican case modification to it. But is there something that you look forward to building yourself or purchasing when you get the funds?
Right now, I'm on the hunt for a big lens. I've got a camera that I actually built from scratch. It's a 24-inch by 24-inch back on it.
Oh man.
I built that during COVID. It's got about a 1 meter extension on the bellows, and I'm looking for that big lens that I can kind of put that thing into action. But you know, that comes within a whole another host of things as far as trying to track down tanks and really spending a lot of money on all the chemicals that go along with those big plates. So
Oh man, yeah.
what?
I don't I shoot mostly during these events. I narrowed down my like 8x10 plates, and now I make it like a limited offer of, I'll do a run of 5 maybe for an event. And even me saying that, I'm like, no, let's just do 3. Because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're just putting all those 8x10s into your tank, and you're just diluting and diluting your silver. And so my tips to anybody who just shoots 8x10s for like an 8-hour day.
Yeah. Typical size for you is what, a 5x7 or even smaller?
Uh, right now, 5x7 is, but I'd rather make it. My goal is to make it a whole plate size.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha.
If there's a fun little like, I also think that whole plates by offering those is a little nod to the past. But it also, if people are making the investment already for a tintype portrait, that they should spend that much more money on a decent matting and a frame for it. Because I don't think you can get a whole plate size frame. You'd have to buy an actual like 11 by 14 and then get it custom matted.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's the way to go.
So I guess talking about chemicals, I mean, how hard is it to maintain all of your chemistry while you're on the road?
Well, when it's cold, it's a pain in the ass. So I have everything, like all my chemistry in a cooler. I've had this cooler since day one. I'm ready to figure out a different way. Like I used to, what I'll do for cold weather stuff is I'll bring the chemistry inside my like living space of my bus. But with the ether and all that stuff, I like keeping it in the back of the bus. So hand warmers do the trick. You just kind of crack a few of those and put it into the cooler itself. Or you just hope to God that while I'm running my bus and the heater keeps the chemistry warm. But like when I go to leave the bus and the heater's not running constantly, it is worrisome. So I'm trying to run away and try to be a snowbird during this time of the year and just run south.
Yep. Then you'll just use the cooler to keep everything cool.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, especially towards like Yucca Valley and whatnot. I have a little lunch cooler, and then because I have a fridge inside my bus, I will make sure to put those like little ice pack things in that cooler to keep the at least the developer cold. So it's a whole other variable in itself. Um, it's not as taxing as it used to be because I at least I have a few habits now that I've formed to keep things like consistent. But that's one of the biggest setbacks for constantly moving with the chemistry in the different hemispheres of the country.
Yeah. It, since you do a lot of pop-ups, do you do the complete process there? I mean, you varnish and give the plates away then, or do you mail them later on?
Oh, what I found value in when I, especially when I first started, that because I had to convince businesses to allow me to just either pay for the space or just work in their space. So I had to make sure that when I pitched it to them, it was more of a collaborative thing. So I knew I didn't want to varnish the plates and just pass it off on the spot. So what I ended up coming up with is I would shoot the event, and then I would tell my customers, to return to that business in about 4 to 5 days and to pick up their plate. So
Ah, okay.
what that allowed for was the business was getting another customer. They were going to come back to the place, whether it's a brewery or coffee shop, and I hope they're buying another beer or another coffee, but hopefully it's a returning customer for that business.
Nice. Nope, great idea.
Oh, I highly recommend
Plus, it
everyone do
allows you
that.
to get a good scan of the plate and kind of away from, the customers. That stuff takes a lot of time doing all that
Oh, that too.
that
Oh my
finish
gosh,
work.
it also it gives you time to, for me, because I'll never see them again, like most of us. There's a moment of reflection based on certain things that I may or may not have done that day, or I did do right that I can like take notes for. But you're right, I get to archive them for me, and then being able to archive them also gives me an opportunity to potentially sell prints afterwards too.
Nice.
So it's just more of like a win-win, and it makes things run smoother for always being on the move.
Sure. Let's talk about some other gear. So, what are you using for your main camera body and your primary lens that you go to at these events?
So I got myself a Cambo SC 8x10 with three backs, a 4x5, 5x7, 8x10,
Okay.
and for the main lens, I've been rocking. I couldn't tell you what year it is, but it's a Bosch Lumen. It's a 10-inch, and it's wide open at f5.
Okay.
And I bought that from Jason probably a year into knowing him. He just kind of had it. He had it for sale. I couldn't pay for it at the time, so I remember I think I showed up probably 8 times for jobs, and then with some cash, I finally got my hands on it. But I never knew how to use it. Uh, I was about to sell it in 2018 because I hated it so much. But I made the mistake way back in the day that you should just focus on one thing, especially like your lenses, and just try to hone in on that and perfect that before you move on to another thing. I wasn't doing that. Anytime someone had an old lens, I'd be like, I'll try it. It wouldn't work. I use projector lenses.
Yeah.
Those are garbage. And then I think one day I was like, oh, I'm going to take some pictures of it. I'm going to use it. And I'm going to post that picture that I made with it and try to sell it. And it was just one of those, wow, this is a really good shot. Maybe I won't sell this.
Adjustable aperture in that lens.
No, so this one, I think that's the reason why Jason got rid of it. The person before him had stripped out the variable f stops, so there was none.
Got it.
It
Yeah.
took me 7 years to find the model with the apertures in it from Igor's Camera in Cleveland, Ohio.
Are you so? Do you have a large collection of lenses that you kind of pull out every once in a while, or is that for the most part your main lens that you use the majority of the time?
The majority of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Even now, when you say that, I'm nowhere near the lenses I have, but like I have four. But as of right now, that Bosch Lume is the one that I can't. It just completely. I can't think of it, any other one that I have.
I've got a couple of those older Bausch and Lomb lenses laying around. I've actually found two smaller ones that I built a little stereo camera for that I've just used a couple of times. they're not a matched set, so there's a little bit of difference between the two, but it's close enough that you can get by with it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
What was your first lens?
the first one was whatever lens came on the little Graflex Speed Graphic 4x5 that I started off with. So, and
I can see those things. I actually, those things are great though. Those, when you talk about sharpness and whatnot, there's a different quality of the edges and the quality of the blacks and those little lenses and how they just like really filter that light and
yeah,
like squeeze it through. So I'd always recommend someone buying those graphics cameras, especially with those lenses. They're
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. This is an older one. I mean, it's probably from the 40s. It's not in the best shape, but it gets by for what I was using it for at the time before I finally found an old Eastman 8x10 online that I bought, and I've been using that for the last few years. So,
There you go. I think I had a before because I was in college, so I could just rent out cameras. So I got a 4x5 for free, and I was just using that. But then once I graduated, I had nothing. I was using my instructor's 4x5, but at some point, she wanted that back, and I found a Eastman Kodak 5x7 on Craigslist, and the guy wanted $900 for it. I went and showed up to the place.
wow.
He had it. He had it stored in an outdoor shed. So when I went, like, I leaned forward to pick it up. There was cobwebs on it. The bottom of the wood was kind of it flaked off, and I gave him that look. And unfortunately, I showed up with $95 even. So like this whole time, as soon as I picked it up, I went, yes, yes, I can bring him down. I opened the bellows up, and it made that cracking noise.
Oh yeah,
And they were lovely. They really were beautiful. They were red too, and the mahogany.
yeah.
I miss it. Was a beautiful camera, and I said, "Oh man, right there it is, man. I can't give you your asking price, that's for sure." And I think you can give me. And I pulled out whatever I had in my pocket. It was $95. And then my friend pulled out money from her pocket, and she had $2.50. And that guy was like, "Yep, I'll take 97.50 for it."
I'd say that guy got exactly what he needed for it. So you're using the Cambo now. Is there any other upgrades that you've got in mind, or
I'm looking right now at the another Cambo. It's a Cambo SCX, and all it is upgrade. It's just as far as fine tuning. I think the front standard and the back standard both have this like metal wire that goes in between it, so it keeps the structure the integrity of the front standard. So like the two arms won't fold in on each other or backwards. So I was
okay,
thinking of getting that.
nice.
My dream is 11x14.
Ah,
That's
okay.
but I don't have money to drop $2,000 to $5,000 in a camera.
Yep, understand.
How about you?
Um, I have not put much thought into it. At some point in the future, I would like it, but this is kind of like, hey, this is the first camera that I found, and it's like I know all of the little things that are wrong with it and how to get around them, and it's done good for me over the last few years. So I don't know, maybe someday,
Right.
you
Are
know,
you able to move the back standard at all as far as like if you want to do a tilt shift or anything?
you can, yes.
That's good. Okay.
Yep, it's got you can raise and lower the front lens. There's no tilt on the front, but there is a little bit of a tilt on the back
That's
plane
good.
there. So
I think that's important. I think if especially for a lot of us that want to shoot portraits, I think if you want to have a person turn to the right or like a 45 degree, that having a tilt is important.
yeah. So speaking of people, uh, is there anyone on your list that you would really love the chance to photograph? Is there somebody out there that, whether it's a celebrity or not, someone that you'd like to shoot?
Gosh, I spent all day today trying to think of all the questions you'd ask, and this one definitely I should have thought about this one. There's a few. I know that celebrity wise, I would love to photograph Christopher Walken.
Nice. Okay.
That's for sure. I just think he's an honest man. I see it in his eyes, And another person when I think about like who's making actual change and effort, and whether it's for the country and their state, is Stacey Abrams.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
I I can spit off a few celebrities, but when I think about someone who's like making real change in our times, is Stacey Abrams for sure.
Nice. Have you ever thought about reaching out to any of these folks?
This year, yes, this is definitely the year where I'm just kind of I'm doing my absolute best to make sure that the email itself sounds legit, and I'm just pushing send. It's working so far, and I look forward to finally sharing some of the cool things like that has happened because of just pushing send. But I'm uh, I'm definitely not afraid of rejection.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think I feel better knowing that I at least tried with rejection rather than making it up in my head.
Good for you. Joseph, let's talk about one shot to rule them all. Can you give us an idea of where that idea came from?
Yes. So one shot to rule them all show. I had a studio space also in the building that Jason was in for a bit, and it was a month lease, which was amazing. I think it was like $400 a month, and for every month he would just go, "You doing another month?" I'd be like, "Yeah." So on July 5th, the landlord of the place said, "Hey, I'm going to need you to get out at the end of the month. I'm going to remodel the entire space and let my son have a studio apartment to go to college in." So I was heartbroken a good
Yeah.
bit. And what I hate the most in life is I'm definitely go out with a bang kind of person. I don't want to like lock the door, walk 10 feet, turn around, like just pass my shoulder and look at the door again, and then keep walking. What I wanted to do was do something that it meant for this, like something that made sense for the space. So I was out to lunch with a friend. His name's Farzine Graham, and him and I were talking about photography. He's a fellow photographer, great guy, and he was mentioning that he never had any work up at a show or a gallery, and it was like right there in that spot. Like I knew, like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put on a photography show for my friends. We're
Ah.
just gonna we're just gonna one shot each, because I know how hard it is for people to like, hey, can you do a series of photographs? And then they get subconscious about their work. Maybe they don't even share their work with me. So I'm like, just one shot each. I think I charged $25 to print them at the time of my friends, and I got 25 people to participate. And I drove out to IKEA and bought the cheapest frame you can get. It was like $10
Yeah.
each,
Yep.
but it was uniform. That's all I mattered. I wanted to make sure that the frame didn't take away from the art. So I remember setting up the shot. I had a lot of help from my friends Tom McConnell and Jacob Dewar. I couldn't have done it without them. We set up the show, and I think about an hour and a half prior to people getting there, I just have this realization that when people come to photography shows, especially with mixed media photography shows, they're just going to skim the work. They're going to go to their friend's shot. They're going to congratulate their friends, and then they'll just kind of Miranda around. So I wanted people to participate and really look at the art and like think about it. Like, why is this photograph good? So I think almost 45 minutes before the door opened, I hurry up and printed out these ballots of I put like number 1 through 25, and I had people when you walk in, I'd like, hey, listen, you have 3 votes. You have to fill in 3 separate circles, and at the end, as you walk out, there's an apple box. Just put your votes in there. That was like a last minute thing. But what happened was I was watching people go back and forth on images. Like, I know, but this one over here, look how they utilize the shape in this one, or maybe like, oh, this one, why did they choose blue? You know,
Nice. You put them in that down select mode because you gave them three choices, right?
oh yeah, that was just, bleh, I threw away the ones that only had like one circle filled in, and that progressed into that was so awesome. Like I got a lot of people mentioning like, hey, you should do this again, and I think it took another 2 years before I realized I could do it again. I put it on in a legit gallery that I paid for. I had 52 photographers. I had sponsors, and when you came to vote, you got 5 votes, and I could actually offer something for the winnings. I hate trophies. I don't like the plaques with like a gold guy standing there with holding something. So I ended up finding a sculptor. Gosh, I don't remember his last name right now, but Christopher. He made this glass sculpture as the main trophy for the event, and it was phenomenal. I think everybody that I knew that I went to school with, my instructors, even the people at the cafe I used to frequent a lot came out to this event. So that was just something else in life that was just like a dopamine hit. Like it was good for the community of photographers, and anyone could participate, and that was anyone from a hobbyist to a professional.
I love that idea. That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
this, yeah, I'm hoping to pull off 2 shows this year. I'll spit 2 cities out that I think they're going to be in, but I can't confirm whether or not they will be. But I'm thinking either San Diego or Salt Lake City.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Before we move on, real quick, just for kicks, how long have you been a photographer? Did you get into this not knowing anything much about photography, and you just kind of dove into tintypes?
Exactly. Yep. I am a tinkerer. I went to school. I have a degree in electrical engineering.
Yeah.
I always loved chemistry, and this was just one of those things that I got in my head. You know what? I'd like to know how to do this. I'm going to figure this out. And so read a lot of books, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and
Right.
went through that same kind of process. Ordering chemicals, wasn't sure what was going to happen. But as soon as I set up 2 of these old antique cameras out on my patio on a nice sunny day. I took the speed graphic out there, loaded it up with the chemicals that I sloppily poured on the plate. Took it back inside, and the picture itself is awful, but I can tell what's there. I can see these 2 cameras, and after that, I was hooked. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, I remember you were talking to Shane about that. So you and Shane definitely share a similarity as far as you're not photographers. You just you found this process, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is it.
yeah.
Hello, that's phenomenal.
I think the biggest thing for me, and this kind of goes back to what you were mentioning, the first time that you were taking your first picture was just sharing this process with people. I just think it's so amazing that this technology was around, over 160 years ago, and that's how they were making images back then. People have forgotten all about this, right? And these days, I mean, I think everybody is a photographer. Everybody has a camera in their pocket
Mm,
almost 24 hours a day, right? But there's something special about this, and that's the thing that just kind of keeps drawing me back to it. So,
I agree, and I think too. My favorite thing about photography is one. Again, I this never was a thought when I was a kid. I never knew what the hell I wanted to be, and my family's pretty big on like spending time together and all that stuff. So I love sharing things with people. So, like you said, you hit a nail on the head right there. You get to share this with people, and if like even right now with you and I, if we weren't in this, I mean, I don't know what else we'd be talking about via photography. It'd be just another like most recent gear or jobs we're on.
yeah.
But this is it feels like a meaningful thing that we can actually like stamp in time. And there's just yeah, you make me think of again of like the first day hanging out with Beth. Christopher was the guy's name. Because I was sharing that with them. They each got 2 photographs, 2 tintypes to shoot to, and it was just this really cool. Both all 3 of us like could just like, boy, I just even now I'm just remembering it. It's kind of taking me back. It's kind of trying to remember every detail of that, and it's making me also sad that it was 10 years ago. I never thought in a million years again that I would be on a podcast talking about tintype photography with a fellow wet play artist.
Yeah.
I just thought it was going to be a niche.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing. I mean, over the last, of course, I didn't get into this until about 2016 or so. I had
Yeah.
done a lot of research for probably a good 6 to 9 months before that, but seems like over the last decade or so, it's really jumped up in popularity, and it seems like there's a lot of folks that are actually have some involvement in it. I told I can't remember who it was, one of the previous interviews. We always say that there's 1,000 people doing this worldwide.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm kind of at the point now, as I've looked through so many different photographers online. I think we're probably beyond that now at this point. I mean, I think there are people that are consistently putting out plates worldwide, and it'd be nice to know how many folks are actually involved in it on a regular basis.
I've always been interested in the folks that are. There was a moment, my first John Coffer camp tintype experience. I was probably no more than, gosh, I think 8 months into living out of a van. I didn't know John Coffer had traveled the country in a wagon and horse-drawn wagon, sharing dry plate at first and then wet plate. But we're around the fire that night, and I think there was probably, I think 11 of us or so. It's 11 at night. It's the first night of the 3-day event, and someone had asked or someone jokingly said "There's no way none of you guys are doing this for a living," and it was a really cool moment. Like, oh wait, I am. Hi everybody. I'm trying really hard to make this a thing. That I just remembered right now. So I want to know, there's folks out there that have studios and they dedicate some time to shooting wet plate photography, but I'm interested in who makes an absolute total career move
Right.
to just shooting tintypes.
Yeah. Now that number I think is a lot lower than 1,000.
Boy, yeah, it'll kick your ass, that's for sure.
Yeah. Are there any big projects that you want to tackle that maybe you've been thinking on, or they've kind of simmering a little bit?
The one simmering right now is while I'm traveling, I am very fortunate that I could possibly be next to or near other wet plate photographers. So I always do my absolute best to reach out to whomever, and I really hope that other artists reach out to me. I've been trying to take a portrait of them via lighting and the studio stuff and my style. And then what I'll end up doing for their bigger plate is I want to photograph them with their tools, their equipment, or maybe their setting or said studio with just ambient light.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, the first plate, I think I shot the first artist to reach out to me on the road when I was down in DC was Landry uh, Dunand. He messaged me on Instagram and asked to get a cup of Joe, and I'm like, absolutely. And while I was hanging out with him, he had a shed out back at his house. It was January, so it was cold, but he had a whole studio set up in this little shed, and I was fascinated by that. He had this beast of an 8x10 camera and a very rickety tripod, and then he took this beautiful shot of me, and he was showing me the work that he was creating, and we kind of had it back and forth based on technique and variables that we both experience. But I remember using my graphics and shooting a little 4x5 plate of him, and that's where the idea kind of wait a second, this is a good idea. So the first plate is of Landry standing out front of his shed with his big old camera. That was pretty much the spark. So right now I'm trying to do an entire series of wet plate artists and have a show by 2025.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So hopefully I'll get to see you on the road. I hope.
I hope so. I'm gonna keep
Um,
my eyes open for you.
yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to have some type of route shared on social media on my website by the 5th of February. That way I can really plan, and you and I can get together, or whomever, via tintype artists.
Sweet. Okay, what about, you mentioned all the time on the road? Do you have any good road stories that you can share? Maybe an unusual event, or something that you're like, what just happened?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of a lot of it's not radio friendly. So I'm trying to think of moments of my questionable areas of places I've stayed, or there. when you think about those moments you share with people, there's like maybe three of them that are more or less like people were assholes, more or less anything else. So
Yeah.
those cloud my judgment and my thinking of that. I remember one time, we've all experienced at least some form or another someone looking at the plate as it's being fixed, and they just, whether they have a moment with themselves, with their loved one, maybe they'll express an unusual amount of emotion, whether that's, they're crying or just kind of they need a moment to reflect on what just happened. Those are beautiful moments. It also means the world to hear, like, this is probably the best photograph of me. But I remember in Virginia Beach, every time I fix a plate, I'm just as excited as anyone else is. And I was like, I came out with a negative. It was of this woman. If I may, it was, just an average portrait. I lit it because of, it was a woman. I just thought I'd light it just so her skin looked ethereal and bright. We put it down in the fix. And as it's fixing, she said, I mean, just right away, she goes, I don't like it. I'm leaving. Well, I don't even think she said I'm leaving. I just went, I think I put it in the thing. And she goes, aren't you a little too excited for something you don't know it's going to work yet? And I went, oh, it looks great. The positive looks great. And she goes, we'll see about that. And as soon as the half of it got, she goes, oh, great. And she just left.
Wow.
That just left. At the time, wasn't, I didn't require like a down payment for people at the time. So, to this day, I'm like, even now talking about, like, I wonder if she just didn't like that or herself. Did she not like my energy? Like, what do I do?
I mean, that's kind of crazy for someone to just walk away halfway through the fix process. I mean, I would think that, especially for
Not,
someone
yeah,
that's never seen it before, you'd at least want to hang out and see what's
I was
going to
still
happen.
using sodium thiosulfate too, so it was taking a little bit longer because I would like really dilute it, so it would take longer and really wouldn't soak into the image
Yeah.
for less rinse times. And yeah, like I said, it got like 25%. She saw her eyes and her cheek, and then she just kind of like, oh, okay, and she just left.
Wow.
Uh, Everyone looked at each other. I kind of had like a, oh, uh-oh, is that a reflection of me? Was that her?
Well, sometimes people are just having a rough day, and
But I
you
will
know,
say, yeah, no, I like I said, I have stories of people being, whether or not they the expectation was too high and it didn't come out that way, so maybe they didn't want to pay for it, or maybe they were, not satisfied, but they still want to take a picture of the picture. That's when it gets weird. That's when it gets, there's a moment of time where you're like, oh no, I have to be an authority figure based on what's happening. There's too many of those moments where someone just didn't like their face, someone didn't like a certain thing, a feature on their face, and just decided that didn't work for them. So I've had those moments, and it happens a lot. It's not a bad thing,
yeah.
but I'm trying to think of something that was beautiful moments in time that I can share instead.
Well, I mean, that brings up a good point. I mean, in ignoring those situations or those events that have happened, I mean, what keeps you from getting burned out while you're on the road? I mean, there's got to be the other side of this of, hey, this is something that was really unique, that was great that happened, and I'm glad I was there, kind of thing.
It's interesting when you hear the question, and you just kind of have a floodgate of all the reasons why I stay on the road and I keep doing what I do. I think the coolest thing at the end of the day, when I'm traveling somewhere, whether I'm in Salt Lake City and I'm in a coffee shop that I just set up, maybe not even 8 days ago, and I'm there and not a lot of people know about it. At the end of the day, I'm still there. I'm still in Salt Lake City. I'm still hanging out in a city I've never been in. Like we all really hope for. I've been very blessed in this point of my career where if I do go somewhere, somebody somewhere via social media or whatever has sought me out. Whether they gotta drive, 40 minutes to an hour to find me, it's those folks now that keep me going. It's the most flattering thing when someone maybe mentions like, "Hey, I drove like an hour here to get a photograph by you." I'm flattered. I sometimes don't feel like I deserve it. Sometimes it's that weird artistry, self doubt stuff of like, "Who am I?" kind of thing. So those are beautiful moments.
Yeah.
I want to like, just immediately just like. I want to immediately get to the point where I'm like, can I hug you? This is exciting. Like, I wish I could grab a coffee with you and have more of a discussion of what this means for you and what I do. But I'm happy that you're sharing this, 20 minutes to 40 minutes with me. So those are definitely some of the best feelings in the world. The other thing too, I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania. I grew up in very fortunate. It was a coal mining area, so all the old strip mines they were all done with. But the roads to them and whatnot, they went on for days. So as a kid, I could be on my bike and go for days and days and still never hit every trail. So I always had that sense of adventure as a kid. And now it's just exciting that at any point, even like right now talking with you, I can be like, hey, Chad, I think I'm just going to hang up. I'm going to drive over to Ohio, to Cleveland to see my friend real quick. And I
Yeah.
can. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the most, when I first set out to build a van, one of the things I wanted to see because it was just a picture, it didn't exist until I saw it, was the Monument Valley in Utah. And I got very fortunate. There was an Airbnb not even, I think, a quarter mile away from the site. You just park your bus, it's just a picnic table, but they had like a private path you can walk up and just see the entire valley. And it's stuff like that, and you get up there and you finally see it. You kind of have an influx of everyone who helped you get there. All the things you had to do, all the things you had to, like, just like all the days I didn't want to do anything but did it anyways. But I always think of everyone that's always helped me get to that point. Whether you came out for a tintype, was a friend who helped me build something in the bus, or just got a drink with me or food. It's in those moments of like, it just kind of, you stop, but everything comes rushing at you. Those are the beautiful moments on the road.
That's sweet.
That's why I keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned that you've met a lot of other photographers while you've been out on your travels. Who are the folks that kind of inspire you in your work? Whether it's current day practitioners or historical figures.
Ian's had talked about Edward Curtis with Shane for a bit.
Yeah.
So Edward Curtis was always a motivator, especially because of his work. I just realized it was dry plates for most of them. I think of like modern day like artists, like you think about Irving Penn. Those are definitely, when it comes to lighting and style, that's what I want to do. But as far as people on the road and fellow practitioners, I've been very fortunate to have coffee with them and sling plates with them. The first one that comes to mind is Patrick Damons out in the Bay Area. He had always been on my radar since 2012 because I think he was one of the first tintype artists who got some type of like a lot of eyes on him via Instagram back when it was like the heydays of that. So I got to spend almost an entire week with him, with his family. We got to sling plates together. We got to just talk shop. He was also in the military. So I think my lucky stars for stuff like that. Because if I hadn't been doing what I'm doing, who knows when I'd ever get out there to spend time with him. There's earlier artists I met on the road, like Emily Lee White in Richmond, Virginia. She was like one of the first folks that brought me into the studio.
Okay.
The hard thing is everyone has their niche with the process, and I'm always fascinated to find out what people's goals are with what they want to do with wet plate. Do you want to do portraits? And if you do want to do portraits, now the question you want to ask yourself is what kind of lighting, what kind of story do you want to tell with it? What's interesting about the podcast is it's wonderful to, I don't think about a lot of this stuff. I don't have a lot of people. They ask me about my travels, and whatnot, but it's interesting to talk to another practitioner, and I just want to keep jumping back and forth of like, well, who got you into this? Who's your inspiration?
Yeah.
Who are you, Chad?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really the purpose of this podcast is I know that a lot of folks that have been in this for quite some time that have got a significant following, that are well known, they've done a lot of these types of interviews, and most of the time when I've listened to them, they're being talked to by people that really don't know anything about the process, right? And so the
Right.
first question is, well, tell me about wet plate. I've never heard of that before. And I really wanted to get away from that and dig into more of, the kinds of information about gear and maybe what your typical setup is in a studio, but also like you mentioned to go and talk to those folks that are really doing something somewhat unique with the process, right? I've got on tap a few folks that, maybe are doing something with reenactment photography, or they're doing
Hmm.
something that's not even images or portraits at all. It's something with jewelry or whatever it might be. Really hoping to kind of share that idea of, hey, this is not just a single process that you take somebody's portrait with. There's a lot of things that you could be doing, and here's some of the folks that are kind of pushing the boundaries of this process to kind of fulfill their
Hmm.
creative needs with it. So yeah,
What's wild is it's the new year, and I have yet to shoot a plate in it's the 23rd. So I haven't shot a plate in probably like a month. So it's wild. This is me like tame. So I'm sitting here trying to be like proper and whatnot, and I'm also at my grandmother's place, so I'm trying not to be like loud. And it's interesting, when we think about the rapport and whatnot, just talking tintypes. It's even then me going into this, I'm trying to think of all these like standard ideas. Like I love traveling, and I do this because I love it, and it's magic. It's
yeah,
interesting that I now realized that I'm trying to do a podcast as well, but boy, is it tough. It is tough to whether it blame my ADHD or whatever. But man,
yeah. Well, I'd say if it's been at least a month since you've shot any plates, then I'd probably recommend mixing up some new developer. I've ran into that issue.
oh, exactly. That's actually my issue right now is I don't have anything to even make any developer. So I did have some mixed, but yeah, it's shot. It's gone. So I have to wait another a week before I get anything,
Yeah,
whether it's raw or mixed. And I'm antsy, but I'm also antsy to get back on the road. You and I have to discuss like at what point maybe during this year that we can get together. Uh, boy, there's so much. I think I love doing what I do, as far as traveling nonstop doing tintypes. But I really do want a studio again. I don't get to really. I miss just practicing and not looking for a moment to practice.
yeah. Well,
That,
I will say this. I mean, for someone that doesn't have the consistency that a studio brings, you are taking some fantastic portraits. Just amazing shots. And some of these places, like I was looking through some of the photos that you had taken at the, looked like it was an old jail or something. I mean,
oh yeah, yeah.
crazy stuff there. I mean, just there's one photo that I've been kind of drawn to here recently, and it's a younger kid. I'm gonna say it's a kid. He's probably 20 or something. Got a cowboy hat that's like cocked all the way like on the back of his head. I love that portrait. I don't know what it is about it, but
Gosh,
it's
yeah.
like the freckles
Clayton
on the
Wilson.
face, and it's just amazing. So
I think this is important. I think so. I think if someone does want to do, maybe maybe you do have like on location studio, but maybe it feels stagnant because people aren't coming in. Even when I'm out and about, I don't have a lot of say on who signs up for my event. So like if I make a post on Instagram and then boom, people sign up, I don't go into further investigation of who's who. So if I'm there at an event, that was at the American Legion, Post 82 in Nashville. was during the Honky Tonk Tuesdays. It's a happening place. If you ever go to Nashville, Honky Tonk Tuesdays is a must do.
Nice.
But I was set up, and that event was first come first serve. So a lot of it's just talking about the process and why people should pay that much to get it. And there was a break, and there was just a long enough break where I'm just scanning the crowd. I'm looking for either something interesting. Maybe I want to make a new friend. Maybe I'm looking for a portfolio shot. And then as I'm having that thought, scanning the crowd, there's Clayton. I know I didn't know who he was at the time, but everybody and their mother there is dressed in their country there.
Yep.
They got their bolos on, they got their hats, they got the cowboy. So Clayton absolutely stood out. He was, he was a tall, lanky kid. It just added to the character. Like you said, his hat was just that perfect, like back far enough where you believed that it would not fall off. And I just darted into the crowd. I have no quarrel doing that. I just like walk to a person like, "Hi, hey brother, I'm Joseph or Joe," and I'll pretty much just like pitch it to him like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing over here because I'm asking you to do it. I'm going to give you a free digital file of the shot. However, if you want to pay for the plate, it's so and so much off or percentage off
Yeah.
if you want the plate, but I'll give you a free digital file." So that usually wins people over. And he was just like, he was much younger than I thought he was. So he was just kind of like, he wasn't timid, but he was kind of like, okay, I guess. So we got him over there. He was no model. He just kind of like, "Where do you want me at?" And the go-to thing always for me is, especially a character like himself, is just do like the beauty dish right above the subject, because if they turn their face, whatever, it's going to cast a shadow on the other side.
Right.
So you don't want to move the flash left or right, because you're just going to flatten the image. And I put the Einstein that I use. It's worthless without a cone. So if I can funnel that power, I can get a pretty bright highlight. And I put that relatively close to his head, probably about, I don't know, a foot or so away.
Okay.
And then, most people ask, like, "What do I do with my face?" And I was like, "I need you to look off into the horizon, my son. And you just got to think about whether or not you're going to see your girl again or Ma. Or maybe you got letter or word that someone shot Pa.
Okay.
And you're going to avenge him." So we just kind of stood there. I promise you, when looking at him, it wasn't, I was trying my hardest, like, no, just kind of do like a Clint Eastwood glint, kind of do like on the cheekbones, bud. I took the shot. It was fast moving. And then when I developed it, of course, I was like, "Oh my God, there it is. Please don't blink. Please don't blink." Okay, his eyes are open.
Yeah.
Get out there. Um, it's in those moments I get to actually practice, but I also have the stress of like, I hope this is good, because I can't afford to do another of him, because I need to make money to keep going on this trip. So it comes out and it was beautiful, as you saw on the Instagram post. Yeah, I mean, he killed it. He did such a good job, and I'm thankful for that people listen and don't blink. I always tell people all the time. I even told him, like, they're 55% of my success rate is people. If they move or they don't heed my instructions, the moment shot, it's gone. So I need people to participate, and he did a wonderful job thinking about avenging Pa.
That's
So
awesome. That's a great behind the scenes story there with that shot. I mean, it's really unique.
it's great to say, because I actually have it right here hanging in my room. It's
Okay.
really hard because I want to give it to him, but I don't.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Let's talk about advice. If you had one piece of advice, and let's focus in on what mistake maybe do people make when getting into wet plate. What is the most common thing that they do wrong, and how would you advise them to correct it?
I made the mistake of I didn't ask enough questions, because I was worried that I was stepping on toes asking too many questions with Jason. I respect him so much. I didn't want to come off like I wanted to like take away any clients or jobs or stuff from his work. So what I ended up doing was I just kind of like quietly tried to figure things out. And I also didn't write notes is the second thing. So not asking enough questions to help you not waste time in notes. So if you do something one day, you can like, okay, you can at least keep track of the temperature, how old your collodion is and your developer, and whether or not you stay on one f-stop. Stay on one f-stop. I don't recommend people really get into flash photography right away. I think that's it'll hurt your feelings because if you try to do anything else, it'll hurt a lot, and then you can really get discouraged a lot with flash photography. And it really comes down to, I didn't know collodion was a thing, like the colorization of it. I started in 2013. I did it here and there, but I didn't know about collodion, like the aging of it from clear to amber, until late 2017. And then once I figured that out, one, I got mad at myself for wasting 4 years of my life, and numerous times failing with flash photography. I was doing well with the outdoor stuff, but I wasn't paying attention to the sensitivity of the collodion. And I was using old workhorse collodion at the time, which is my favorite for strobes, but it's like a 2-week window, maybe 3, that you can actually use it with especially with the white lightnings. And so I would say definitely ask questions. Don't be afraid to, like, if people are listening now, I do not mind if you send me a message either via email or my DMs. I recommend you ask me questions and introduce yourself instead of just, hey, what collodion do you use? But just like if you have questions to ask or you're held up on something, don't be afraid to ask questions. Make sure you're proper about it. You're respectful about it. But definitely ask questions, especially when you're hung up on something.
That's awesome. Okay, Joe, you're always on the lookout for places to set up and shoot at. So how do people that want to see your work or maybe even host a pop-up event or maybe they just want to find out where you are? I was thinking about this. You've seen the Santa tracker at Christmas. We almost need a Joseph Wyman tracker to see where you're at in your travels.
That's really great that you bring that up because I looked into doing that. The biggest issue is I live in my bus. Everything I have is in my bus, so I can't let you know exactly where I'm at. But there will be a there actually will be a list with dates here by February 5th of 2023 on my website about roughly where I'll be. Whereas right now you have no idea where I'll be, and if you want to see some new work, I'm always updating my Instagram every day, whether it's of a tintype scan, my whereabouts, my bus, things I'm experiencing, and my daily 1 seconds. So that's a fresh channel to see every day. So everything under the sun except for Twitter is going to be Joseph Wyman Photo, and that's JOSEPHWYMAN Photo. And that's my middle name, by the way.
So it's Instagram, your website.
Yeah, so Instagram, website, yeah. So and then also YouTube as well.
Awesome. Well, Joseph, I appreciate you joining us in this episode on 10 Questions. I'll be honest, when I started this podcast out, I was a little bit nervous myself, and it's kind of awkward to reach out to folks, but most of everybody that I've talked to has been pretty willing to check this out, and there's some good info in here for folks that are trying to learn more about the process and even maybe what it's like to take the show on the road. So thanks, Joseph, for sitting in here today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode and maybe even picked up some insights that will help you along in your own wet play journey. I'd love to hear from you on who you'd like to have on in a future episode. So send me a message and follow our Instagram account at 10 Questions with any feedback. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast provider. Thanks for listening to me, Chad Shryock, and my expert guests and I look forward to you joining me again in the coming weeks for a new episode of 10 Questions.